Believe it or not, it's been 2.5 years since I last made a video comparing open source alternatives to popular productivity software that is generally closed source and proprietary. And the open source sphere has progressed enormously since I last made one of these videos, so we're going to take a look at some open source alternatives to very popular productivity programs. But first, a word from our sponsor. This video is sponsored by TuxCare. They make sure that your open source stack is secure and up to date, even when you're running end-of-life versions. Their endless lifecycle support delivers long-term patching for out-of-support versions of apps, libraries, runtimes, and Linux operating systems, so your entire stack can stay secure, compliant, and resilient even after official support has ended. And to support that, TuxCare offers a freely accessible CVE tracker. It gives you a clear, real-time view of vulnerabilities and available fixes across all of TuxCare's supported end-of-life technologies, including the dependencies beneath them. You can quickly identify risk across your entire environment, filter by severity, product, or component, and you can understand exactly where you are exposed and how it is being addressed. You can also subscribe to updates on various CVEs and fixes, so you're always aware of the time when remediation is available and applied. So you can explore TuxCare's CVE tracker using the link down in the description, and of course, if you want to keep your open source stack compliant and secure, they also have tons of solutions for that. The link is down in the description too. So, in the last video, I tried finding alternatives to Acrobat Pro, the PDF editor that Adobe makes, and there wasn't really a good solution back then, but now there are plenty of things you can look at. The main one will be OnlyOffice. They now have a full PDF editor that actually lets you edit the PDF document. You can edit the text inside of the document, you can add new pages, you can rotate existing pages, you can add text boxes, you can add images, you can add shapes on top of the existing PDF document, and of course you can then export that as its own PDF document. This is something that didn't really exist, at least for free, and as an open source application on Linux. You had plenty of other older solutions, but they were either paid, or they weren't open source, or they were pretty clunky. You could use, for example, LibreOffice Draw to try and edit PDFs, but it edits text line by line. It sometimes messes up the formatting. OnlyOffice is a lot more reliable to do this kind of stuff. Now, when talking about PDFs, if all you need is to add or remove pages, to fuse documents and stuff like that, you have PDF Arranger. This is a very simple tool that does just that. You import PDFs by drag and drop, you can reorder the pages, you can delete certain pages, and you can export the end result as a single PDF. Very simple app that works really, really well. I use it quite often in my day-to-day job when I need to do some administrative work with my accountant, for example. And if you just need handwritten annotations or text boxes, you have Papers, which is the default PDF editor for GNOME. In GNOME 50, you now have handwritten support, meaning you can just sign a document by just drawing with your mouse. It's not official, certified, legal signing, but it works for a bunch of documents, and generally that's what you need to do. You don't need to digitally sign using a specific solution in a lot of cases. Ocular can also do that on KDE, but the interface is a little bit more clunky than the one that Papers introduced in GNOME 50. So PDF editing is now a solved thing on Linux. You either use OnlyOffice if you really need to fully edit a document that you have lost the original copy to, or you never had access to it, or use Papers and Ocular to just add a little signature or add annotations on top of the document. It works really well, and so you probably don't really need Acrobat Pro in a lot of cases, meaning you can also just use all of that on Linux. By the way, all of these alternatives that I'll present do have a Linux client, but I didn't check if they have a Windows or Mac OS client, because if you need to switch away from proprietary software, the first thing you should probably do is move away from Windows or Mac OS and move to Linux. So Linux clients work, the rest you'll have to double check. They probably do have at least Windows clients though, because everyone does, basically. Now, in terms of task management and project management, if you use something like Omnifocus on macOS or a big task management app to handle to-do lists and projects, you do have a few alternatives nowadays. First is Planify. This is the one I use personally. It is a very simple application, but it looks really good and it has a ton of hidden features that you can access. The basic interface just works for a simple to-do list, but every time you need to go and do something a little bit more advanced, it generally just has the feature there. You can sync with CalDAV tasks, you can sync with Todoist if you want to use that. It looks really good because it's a native GNOME application, so the interface is really nice. It supports various projects, and you can have, of course, plenty of tasks with plenty of additional details, like description, recurrence, tags, due dates, start dates. You can pin certain tasks to have them at the top of the view. You have a today view, a scheduled view, a tomorrow view that you can enable, an all tasks view. The only thing missing really might be the ability to create your own views by setting up specific filters on tags, on due dates, on projects, so you can have your own custom-made view. That's something that Omnifocus does on macOS and that you won't find, unfortunately, on Planify. You also have a bunch of options to integrate your tasks with your calendar. You can automatically recognize dates in the titles of your tasks. So if you start typing tomorrow in the title of the task, then it will automatically add a due date for tomorrow. You can add sections in your projects for more legibility. You have reminders as well. You can have a quick add pop-up window that you can invoke with a global shortcut. They'll actually tell you how to do it with the Flatpak, for example. You have backups as well. It's just a fantastic application. It's one of the best that I've tried to handle task management. It's the one I use on a day-to-day basis to handle all the small little things I need to do for the Warhammer channel, the Linux channel, all my admin work, all the taxes and all the stuff that I need to handle. It's fantastic. Now you also have another alternative which is called Super Productivity. It is also open source. It has a web app and also a downloadable client. It handles projects and individual tasks. It handles subtasks, of course, all the usual recurrence, attachments, notes, deadlines, everything you would expect. You can also go further with boards like a Kanban board or a matrix. You can have a calendar view as well, a week planner. It's a really, really great tool, and it's also open source. Now, another big area where people use proprietary software is for note-taking, and there are plenty of ways to handle that. You have the more usual traditional structure with OneNote, you have a more organized knowledge bases / actionable pages with Notion, you have your whole knowledge graph with Obsidian, and we have alternatives for all of those. So for the more traditional note-taking structure, Joplin is the one I currently use. I only use a small subset of what it can do, but it is free of charge, it is open source, it can sync with your own syncing solutions, or you can use their own paid cloud plans. So you can of course edit your notes in Markdown or as a preview. It has rich text tools, it has sections, it has notebooks, it has tags if you need them, and a ton of options to tweak things to your liking. The only issue I encountered with Joplin is that it doesn't really work with the KDE global menu. Enabling that global menu makes the menu in Joplin disappear, but it doesn't appear in the global menu. That was a little bit annoying, but that's the only issue I encountered. And to be noted, Joplin is a sponsor of the channel, but not specifically of this video, and it's the actual note-taking app I use. I can really recommend it, even though they didn't pay me to say that today. Now, if you're more interested in the Notion style of note-taking, or knowledge database, or actionable stuff, you have AppFlowy. It lets you create pages with multiple types of elements in them. You have grids, you have boards, you have calendars, you have lists, you have image galleries, you can even have feeds of all the objects that you have in your page. So you have multiple visualizations of the same stuff that you typed in. It takes a little bit to get used to, but it can do a lot, and it looks pretty nice, and it's also open source, and it has a client for Linux, which is good. Another alternative to Notion is AnyType, but it isn't entirely open source. Like, the way I understand it is the backend is open source, but the application itself is just source available, so you can't really contribute to it, and you can only view the source. You probably don't have the same freedoms that you're used to in open source software. It's still a great alternative to Notion, and I do use it to manage my publication schedule generally. Again, there's a big learning curve to building the pages that you want, but once that's done, it is pretty easy to use. It's all the same type of application as Notion. You just create pages with some data in there in the form of objects. A page is an object, a task is an object, and you can visualize these objects in different ways. So for example, boards or to-do lists or bases, and you can add properties to all of these objects, like tags, like statuses, like dates, or whatever else. It can be used to build a knowledge base or a more actionable notes repository or a to-do list where you just link stuff together and you use your notes as the basis for your productivity setup. It works for basically everything that you might want to, and it just centralizes everything in a single place, just like Notion does. Now, you won't get all the AI stuff that Notion is currently really focusing on, but in my book, that's a win. Most of those apps that I cited do have some kind of AI integration if you want it, but it's not mandatory and it's not the core focus, which, again, in my book is a really good thing. Now for a replacement to Obsidian, you still have Logsec. It is a pretty solid one. You can create pages for your notes, you can link the pages to other pages, and that creates an entire knowledge base using a graph that lets you navigate the relationships between your various notes and pages. It doesn't support folders to organize notes as far as I can tell, which is a bit annoying, but you can also create whiteboards to map out a few ideas or projects, and of course you can create multiple graphs for multiple projects. It also has access to tons of plugins to get a mind map, to get to-do lists, you can add tab support, you can have previews of external links inside of your notes, a bunch of stuff. You can even automatically link pages together if you want to. Basically, the app itself is pretty bare bones initially, but you decide to bring in the features you need through the plugins. So the initial onboarding in the app isn't that complicated, and you add the complexity as you need it using plugins. I think it's a good approach, and it's a really, really good application. If I needed something materialized in a knowledge graph, I would probably use Logsec. And if you really enjoy all the AI integration stuff, you have Affine, which is also open source and is really kind of like Notion, but they do have a ton of AI integration. If you really want to use that, that's there. You also have Trillium, which is a more traditional note-taking application. It also has note relationships like Obsidian. Note-taking is a complex subject. Some people just prefer having basic notes in notebooks. That's me. Some people really want their notes to be integrated with their to-do lists and productivity setup. That's more the Notion thing, so it's AppFlowy, for example. And some people really want that knowledge graph, so like Obsidian, and that's more Logsec if you want the open source alternative. Now for everything related to conversation, so Teams, Slack, or Discord, the main alternative is Mattermost. You can self-host it, or maybe you can find already existing instances, but if you want full control over your data, which is a good reason to move away from stuff like Discord or Teams, then you're probably going to have to self-host it. Apparently it's a bit troublesome to host and to maintain it yourself, but I haven't tried it in a while. It does what you would expect. It has channels, it has permissions, it has messages, it has links, it has GIFs or whatever else. It's just there to converse with other people. It does the same thing that you would expect from the Discords of this world. It's open source, you absolutely control your data, there is also no age verification stuff in there, and you can also do audio calls and screen sharing now in Mattermost, with support for auto-transcribing the meetings if you need that. On top of that, it has boards to track projects if you want to do it all in the same place. It also supports various bots that you can plug into your conversations. You could also set up a Matrix instance. It does the same things. It has rooms, channels, conversations. You can share files in there. It's basically exactly like Discord, except you're also probably going to have to self-host it yourself. There might be providers for existing instances that you can check out, but again, if you want to fully control your data, it's always better to self-host, although Matrix is encrypted. Now, to replace Outlook or email programs, there aren't hundreds or thousands of options. It's basically Thunderbird. It now supports Exchange, with improved support coming soon, because there are a few features in Exchange that aren't there yet, but it has all the rest that you would need, with email threads, calendars, a nice revamped UI nowadays. If you had in your mind the idea that Thunderbird looked woefully outdated, do check it out. It has moved forward quite significantly in the past few years. You also have your contacts in there, your tasks, and even support for chat accounts if you want that. You can also open searches and messages in various tabs to avoid cluttering your view with tons of windows. There are plenty of options in there to make it work how you would like, and plenty of plugins as well to expand what it can do. It's really the best open source email client currently, I would say, if you just need to import your existing email address. Of course, if you use very specific providers, you might prefer using their own email clients, especially for stuff that is fully end-to-end encrypted, but for the rest, Thunderbird is where it's at. There's also Evolution on Linux, but it does look a bit dated nowadays. It's still GTK 3, not GTK 4, so it's not going to integrate very well in current versions of GNOME. It seems like Thunderbird has taken the crown these days. Now, for anything related to Office 365 or Google Workspace, your best bet is currently Nextcloud. There's no two ways about it. It's just the most complete solution you can find. It's fully integrated. It has notes, calendars, contacts, a webmail if you need one, collaboration, chat, video calls, plenty of additional apps you can add to handle documentation databases, boards, whatever you want. you need to self-host it or you need to find a pre-made solution. I currently use Hetzner's plan. It's a managed solution, so I don't have full control over the server, but it automatically sets everything up for you. It's $5 a month for a terabyte of storage. It's reasonably fast, although I do live in France and their servers seem to be in Germany, so that's quite close. If you live elsewhere, it might not be as speedy. You do have full control over the Nextcloud instance because you have administration settings. They are not sponsoring anything I do. I just really like what they did here. Of course, Nextcloud has mobile clients and desktop clients for file syncing. They work on Linux. They integrate really well with our desktop environments as well, so you can absolutely access your Nextcloud storage as just basic network storage from your regular file manager. It's really easy to use. Nextcloud is a really wonderful replacement for anything Office 365 or Google related. It does like an integrated Office suite in the browser. You can add that, but you'll have to set it up yourself. It works with stuff like OnlyOffice or Collabora Online, although the OnlyOffice integration might stop working at some point because there's some beef currently between Nextcloud and OnlyOffice, but Collabora Office should work really well there. And of course, if you don't specifically need to edit documents in a web browser, you just need to access your documents hosted on Nextcloud. Like I said, all that network storage is accessible, on Linux at least, as mounted storage, so you can just open your documents in your desktop Office suite like LibreOffice or OnlyOffice or whatever else. Just works fine. You don't need to edit things in the browser. Now, of course, if all you need is the replacement to the online Office suite in Office 365 or Google Docs, you also have some open source alternatives. If you can't or don't want to self-host anything, you now have Proton Docs and Proton Sheets. They don't have presentations yet, but they'll give you a fully encrypted, collaborative solution that you can access for free with just a Proton account. It's basically the same kind of feature set as a Google Docs or Google Sheets, although I haven't made a full feature-by-feature comparison, so you'll need to give them a shot. The account is free, so it's no big deal. Also, everything is encrypted because it's Proton, so you're pretty secure when you use that stuff. You also have CryptPad with an interface that is not as polished in my opinion. It's also open source, it is also self-hostable, but if you don't want to self-host it, you can find an instance of it at Framasoft. They are a French entity that manages a lot of open source deployed projects that you can access if you don't want to self-host anything. It's called FramaPad in that instance. Now, if you can self-host at home or through managed hosting, then you do have other alternatives, mainly OnlyOffice or Collabora Online. They can both integrate with Nextcloud if you want, but they will also just work in a browser to handle all your documents and your collaborative editing. OnlyOffice has a few issues that are mentioned regularly, notably the fact that it is mainly just source available more than open source, because you can view the source code, you can theoretically fork it, but someone just did that and OnlyOffice is not happy about it because they stacked additional requirements on top of their license. Also, you apparently cannot really contribute to the project as an external contributor, so it's not really in the spirit of open source in my opinion, but features-wise, it's really good. Also, you have Collabora Online, which seems more open, but they're also currently beefing with the Document Foundation, the entity that handles LibreOffice, so who knows what is actually happening there. It's the usual open source community stuff. Even though we should unite and pool forces, we tend to just kneecap each other instead for minor ethical differences or really no reason at all sometimes, but anyway, if you're looking at just the features, OnlyOffice and Collabora Online are open source and also available to self-host or use through managed hosting, and they have all the features, if not a lot more, than Google Docs, Google Sheets, and all of that stuff. Now, another piece of proprietary software that you rely upon might be Windows, and if you have the freedom to change that on the computer you use for productivity, it's just really a good time to move to Linux these days. Windows 11 is an absolute disaster. It breaks all the time. Every single update comes with bricked computers or computers that don't reboot or updates that break future updates. It's a terrible operating system, and honestly, most Linux distributions with all of these open source alternatives will do a much better job, faster, less ads, more secure, more private, more options, more customization. Honestly, if you can move to Linux, you should absolutely give it a try right now, because there will be a Linux distribution out there for you for what you want to do. But of course, if you're watching this channel, you probably already know that, and you probably already use Linux whenever you can. Of course, depending on your setup at work, you might not be at liberty to change the OS that is installed. So we covered PDF editing, we covered note-taking, we covered task management and productivity, we covered your operating system, we covered chat, collaboration, and meetings, and we covered your operating system too, and email as well, and your entire workspace. I think that should about do it for plenty of alternatives. Of course, many people will be looking at alternatives to Photoshop or Affinity Photo, and you do have a bunch of those on Linux, and as open source, you still have the usual GIMP and Krita, which are both really good. You have Inkscape for vector drawing. Those are really well known. I'm not going to expend a lot of time covering them, because if you tried them and didn't like them, you probably still aren't going to be able to use them these days. Anyway, this will conclude this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it or listening to it. Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you have other open source alternatives that you use for any topic, the ones I covered or any other one, leave them in the comments so people know about them and can actually research them and look at them. In the meantime, I'll leave you in the capable hands of myself, telling you about our sponsor, Tuxedo Computers. So if you want to replace your Windows computer with a Linux one, and you need to change the actual hardware, then it's time to take a look at Tuxedo. They make laptops and desktops that ship with Linux pre-installed and are really, really compatible with Linux. They have a big amount of devices there, from the more affordable laptops all the way up to very powerful workstations and gaming laptops. You can choose a bunch of the internals of those devices. You can choose the keyboard layout on the laptop, you can choose the logo you want engraved on the lid, and they have good support policies. They are based in Germany, they ship to most countries in the world, they actually contribute to Linux and to open source with everything that they develop to support those devices, and I only use their devices nowadays for everything that you see or hear from me. I can only recommend them, so as usual the link is down in the description. So thank you all for watching the video. You know where all the usual YouTube buttons are, you have plenty of links in the description to support the show if you want to do that. Thank you all for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one. Bye!